Joshua Frydenberg now joins us from his office in his electorate of Kooyong in Melbourne. Josh Frydenberg, welcome back to Breaking Politics. Now tell us, what does it say about the 43rd Parliament that it never found an agreed approach on the asylum problem?
Well, it's very unfortunate because we had a successful policy in place in 2007 under John Howard. And as you know, Tim, Kevin Rudd unravelled that policy by removing the temporary protection visas, walking back from offshore processing and not continuing with John Howard's successful turn back the boats policy. And what has happened since then is 46,000 unauthorised boat arrivals have come. In fact, in the last 6 years of the Howard government, less people came by boat than in the first 6 days of Kevin Rudd Mark II. And we've got these tragedies at sea, and we've just had another one last night. And this is just a dire situation, and all that Kevin Rudd is proposing is another talk fest when we really need more practical measures, and those that worked under John Howard are those that should work again.
Okay, a quick rundown of what Mr Rudd needs to say, assuming we do get this end of the week asylum policy announcement. What a dot point for us on what we should see from him.
Well, we want that three-pronged policy, Tim. We want the offshore processing, we want the temporary protection visas, and we want the turn back the boats. We also want more resourcing for our federal police and our partners in Indonesia. I mean, there's been a 40% reduction in the Australian Federal Police presence in Indonesia at a time when more people are coming through that country. We've also got to do more in the region. The Bali process was actually initiated under the Howard government. We worked effectively with Indonesia, and that doesn't seem to be happening right now. Okay.
The Indonesian Foreign Affairs Minister's comments yesterday, after being interpreted in a number of ways, at the end seemed pretty clear. Turning back the boats, he said, was unilateral action, and Jakarta could not support unilateral action. Isn't it to the stage now where Jakarta has made fairly clear that it does not want a turn back the boats policy from a government in Australia?
Look, this is just such a red herring, Tim. When we had the turn back the boats policy, we didn't have an agreement with Indonesia because we didn't breach their territorial integrity. That's the reality of it. John Howard just went and did it. And the fact is, the opposition, the government, doesn't support our policy, so they're doing everything they can to pressure the Indonesians to make these statements. And I thought, Bob Carr's behaviour the other day was completely unedifying, because Marty Natalegawa, a very respected person on the international stage as Foreign Minister of Indonesia, said that he was prepared to engage in consultations with the opposition if we turned out to be the government. And then Bob Carr, in some sort of reactive measure, tried to get in there and start bullying him. I mean, that's unacceptable. We have got a successful strategy. It's worked before, it will work again, and we're much better at managing that important relationship with Indonesia than Kevin Rudd and Bob Carr will ever be able to do.
So was Marty Natalegawa, the Indonesian Foreign Affairs Minister, being bullied when he made his statement about unilateral action the night before last?
Well, just reading The Australian today, Tim, you can see what Bob Carr tried to do to get Marty Natalegawa back out there to clarify his comments. And, I just think what Marty Natalegawa said in the first place was absolutely accurate, that the Indonesians would engage in discussions with us. But as I said, this is not, a policy that requires the Indonesians' agreement. This worked in the past because we took the boats, back to the edge of the Australian waters or international waters, and we turned them back. And that was a real deterrent to the people smugglers. And what we've seen in the last, 24 hours is so sad, is so tragic, but it's obviously a reaction to the weak border protection policies of this Labor government and Kevin Rudd's inability to take the hard decisions that Australians want in this area.
Is cutting fringe benefits tax concessions for salary sacrificed cars the right way for the government to go about saving some money?
Well, let's go back to what the government is doing here. They're not actually getting rid of the carbon tax. I mean, this is just another political stunt from Kevin Rudd. The carbon tax will be the same in year 1, in year 2, in year 4, in year 5, year 6, year 7, and year 8. It's a $58 billion slug to Australian families and businesses. But in this fig leaf of a policy which Labor has come up with, which we know that they can't implement because they can't get any legislation through the Parliament with the support of the Greens. When they come up with this policy, they're promising to slug the automotive sector. Now, even the automotive spokespeople have said that this will have dire consequences for the industry. It doesn't seem to be the right policy. I mean, more than 300,000 Australians will be hit by this policy if it was ever implemented, at a time when our car manufacturing sector is already on its knees because of the carbon tax and the failed industrial relations policies of this government. And, I just think, once again, Kevin Rudd is involving himself in knee-jerk politics and without proper consultation with the stakeholders here. So to me it seems like a bad policy at a bad time around a bad idea, which is just to postpone or to move to an ETS 1 year earlier than originally proposed.
You and your colleagues have long argued, though, that the tax at around 23 odd cents a ton, 23 odd dollars a tonne was a huge impost on business and consumers. Ultimately, if he's cutting it to less than 6 cents a tonne, which he would be on the current market prices, a fraction of its current cost, at least you've got to support the direction that takes us, haven't you?
You mean $6 a tonne?
$6 a tonne. Yeah, not quite 6 cents. Wish it were, but at roughly 1/4 of where the market prices, where the fixed price had carbon, the market is an advantage for consumers. The people you've been talking as hard done by here, isn't it?
No. But the point is, under the government's own Treasury modelling, Tim, it's still going to go to $38 a tonne in 2019 and upwards of $300 a tonne in the years after that. This is still a tax on people's electricity. This is still a hit to families and to businesses. In contrast, our policy is to scrap the whole thing. If we have to go to a double dissolution election to do it, we will. But the point is, we will scrap the carbon tax. That's the alternative the Australian people face. The Labor Party fiddling around with political fixes in order to prepare themselves for the upcoming election. On the other hand, our policy, which is very clear, which is to abolish the carbon tax, hook, line and sinker.
And yet your policy, direct action, prescribes penalties for firms for companies that exceed their regular emissions. So will have a cost impact on some companies, and presumably achieving the cutback in carbon that you say you will ultimately cost us all through the system in some way or another. It's not a cost we can ultimately escape, is it?
Not right. We're on about a capped, fully funded and costed policy. And that's what our alternative is, and it's a combination of renewable energies as well as finding the lowest cost abatement out there in the marketplace. Just like the water buyback scheme, Tim, we'll go out there and we will find those companies that can cut their emissions, and we will go out and purchase it. And we have costed it at just over $3 billion. Over the forward estimates. And that's our alternative, whereas Labor is trying to put a tax on the inelastic demand for electricity, and they're punishing households and consumers and businesses in the process.
Josh Frydenberg, my last question is, I think, my most important. Is it your birthday today?
Tim, it is, and it's also Julie Bishop's birthday, Tim. So, she and I were exchanging texts this morning because we both share a birthday. I'm a Cancerian, but unlike the alleged comments of Michael Clark about Shane Watson being a Cancer on the Australian team, I don't take my birth sign to heart.
I've got to ask the toughest question. How old are you?
I've forgotten. But I am 42 for all those people who are going to the APH website right this moment.
From Breaking Politics in Fairfax, a very happy birthday, Joshua Frydenberg. Lovely to have you on.
Thanks, Tim, and all the best.
Liberal MP for Kooyong, Josh Frydenberg.